All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today's lesson applies to both movies, as you can see on the title of what we're going to be talking about. And that little lesson that we have is actions have consequences. As always, make sure to follow my social media accounts at It's Lielers. It's Lielers on Instagram, Twitter, and even on Threads. And also, don't forget to follow my TikTok for those that have a TikTok. It's at Lielers on TikTok. For those that are probably interested in what's going on there, I did post an update. I don't think mostly a lot of people have seen that update, but I uploaded the update of Cosmo finally choosing who she's gonna, I guess, choose her Henry Cavill. I guess her future man, basically. And I don't want to spoil who she picked. If you're not on TikTok, just follow my link tree. Of course, it's going to be on the episode details. If you guys are listening on YouTube, you can definitely check out my link tree. It should be on there. And you can see who my Frenchie decided to pick as her man. You'll be surprised. And then the reaction, like, it shows who her favorite man is out of all the 5 people. And that video, actually, I think it's starting to slow down, but it got over 20,000 likes. So Cosmo's technically famous. But speaking of TikTok, of course, you saw the title. We're going to be talking about Barbenheimer. And I am actually posting, by the time you guys are listening to this episode, if you go on my TikTok, I actually am posting, or already posted, it's already live, of my journey, or my basically day of how I managed to go watch Oppenheimer and Barbie on the same day. I manage. And but yeah, I basically capture all of those little moments, including of me recording part of this episode. I don't know when I'm gonna do it because I need to look at my notes, but you will see. But yes, definitely check out my TikTok if you have not, at Lielers on TikTok. So anywho, let's go ahead and dive into this whole thing. I wanted to say, like, throughout going to watch this movie, and I had it planned, and I was not expecting to do a double feature. I can't remember the last time I've done to where I can watch like more than one movie at the same day. And I want to say it was probably like around 2016-ish. And only because during that time there was no reserved seatings, if I'm not mistaken. And me and this one person that I was with at the time, we went to go watch a movie, and I forgot which one it is. But I just remember it was like raining pretty bad. And I was like, I guess we're stranded. And so the other person was like, do you want to go watch another movie? It's like, might as well, nobody's here. So I said, what the heck? And we watched one movie, and I want to say it was Baby Driver. And then we went to go watch another movie. So that was the only time I've done like 3 movies in one day. Other than that, I haven't done a double feature movie in a while. So it's the time is finally now. And so I wanted to do this little trend. Obviously, I went ahead and pulled the Barbenheimer, where you're watching either movies on the same day. And of course, you do know Oppenheimer and Barbie were released on the same day, and there was no like team Oppenheimer or team Barbie. And I want to say, if there is a team Barbie, it's just girls, whether if it's kids or moms, they're team Barbie. But the people that are watching Oppenheimer, like myself, are also watching Barbie to support both movies. And that's something that's been happening in the entertainment industry before the strike happened with the SAG, I forgot, but it's, you know, it's the actor strikes, or actor, writers, everything kind of strike. And I will probably talk about that on the next following episode, because I am wanting to cover everything that's been happening there. But still, so before all of that happened, you know, we had the creators, the writers, and all of that from both movies respectfully appreciating the other person's work. So if you guys have not seen pictures on social media or somewhere on the internet, we have seen I think it was Greg, I cannot pronounce her last name, But Greta and Margot Robbie got tickets to go see Oppenheimer. And I don't know if we have seen a picture. It looks like it's edited. I don't know if this was confirmed of Cillian Murphy and Christopher Nolan getting the tickets to go see Barbie. So it's like, okay, well, if they're doing it, I wish everybody else would do it. But I will say there is a difference of who watches these movies. And that's what I wanted to talk about before we go ahead and start talking about the movies itself. I did notice there was a difference of who watches either movies. In Oppenheimer, it was more either men or elderly people that were watching the movie. And then when you go to Barbie, I swear to God, as soon as I walked in, I can feel I don't know if I have a sensitive nose, but sweet Jesus. When I walked into the movie theater, once it was time for me to go watch Barbie, I swear it was pink almost. Everybody did dress up, or not everybody, almost everybody in the theater dressed up, and all I saw was pink of various shades. But the most, I want to say the most obvious thing that I couldn't help but to not want to say this on here, but I have to, is that I swear to God, when you walk into the movie theater, it just smells like freaking Bath and Body Works along with other kinds of perfume, and my nose was like, bitch, you're gonna be sneezing during this movie. And I don't think there was a good person sitting next to me. I don't think she just liked my comment, but I'm just like, bro, I did not want everybody to be smelling like a freaking department store, okay? Only because, oh my God, my nose will act up, and I don't want to be sneezing throughout the whole movie. And next thing you know, I get kicked out because I just keep sneezing, and people are gonna be like, well, it's disrespectful of you to be sneezing and whatnot. Well, it wasn't the case after all. I mean, I did kind of had to calm down my nose from, acting up. I felt like I was sick throughout the whole movie, but it was worth it. I mean, people are, who they are. But yeah, there was a big difference on there. And in this whole episode, I will try to not only analyze, why there was that audience, but also because of, who wants to, why should you watch this movie? And if you already watched the other movie, or even better, if you have not watched the movie and you want to do a double feature, which one would it be? So this episode will contain spoiler-free versions for those who are debating on why should they watch either movies or both. I will also have to have a really short spoiler version for both sides, because there is a lot of stuff here that I want to decompress throughout the whole review of these movies. So yeah, it's another movie review, but it's okay. Like I said, the next one is gonna be all about drama and whatnot. So let's go ahead and get started with Oppenheimer. And the reason why I say this was the movie that I watched first. Only and I'm kind of glad I did. I will say why later as soon as I'm done with this. But when I was getting the tickets, I wanted to get the early and my first choice was probably go watch Barbie and then do Oppenheimer. But during the circumstances, though there was only a few tickets left, and there were front row for Barbie early in the morning. So I was like, you know what? All right, fine. I'll go watch Oppenheimer. And thank God there were seats. There were good seats. So I get to see my center one. And unfortunately, I didn't get to go watch it in IMAX, either regular or the 70 millimeter film. The 70 millimeter film is only available in Texas. The only one that's available is in San Antonio. And I'm like, as much as I would love to go, maybe if, there is another opportunity for me to go to San Antonio again because of work, I will get a ticket. But for now, I'm just like, what? I'd rather just stay here. I have Cosmo to take care of and, my guinea pig. So I'm just like, I will just sit here and save my money and just go to my nearest theater. And obviously, again, I will mention this, I do watch my movies at the cinema called Studio Movie Grill, only because of the sounds, the surround system that it has. It's very, very good, especially when you're watching a movie that contains stuff like, like a nuclear bombs and whatnot. And that's what this is. This is a perfect time for me to watch it. The only thing I do not like about Studio Movie Grill is how uncomfortable those seats are. I swear to God, throughout this whole time I was watching this movie, and I'm talking like maybe 6 hours, actually 6 hours to watch both films, but not during, obviously I did have breaks to stand up and go. I think it was like a 40-minute break and then come back to watch the next movie. But still, Oppenheimer was really, really long, and I will say that. Be prepared, because I want to say it was almost 3 hours long. It was over 3 hours because of the movie cuts and whatnot. But for me, we went in at 11 o'clock. That's when the trailer started showing. And by the time the movie was over, it was 2:23 to be exact. So yeah, it was long. But anywho. So for those that do not know what Oppenheimer is, I really can't spoil much of the movie because it is a historical film and is obviously written and directed by Christopher Nolan. And for those that do not know, he directed the Dark Knight movies, which is Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, which is one of my favorite trilogies. One of my favorites. I'm not saying all time favorites. One of my favorites. But he also directed a lot of well-known movies that you may have heard, like Inception and Interstellar, Dunkirk, and then the most recent one besides Oppenheimer was Tenet. Tenet was, I feel like if the pandemic never happened, that movie would have been another success. But again, I do blame that. And even whenever I did watch it, I think I watched it once or twice. I think I watched it once. No, I think I saw it twice. And I still was like, what is going on? I swear. It's the same thing with Oppenheimer. I feel like if I had subtitles in this movie, I would understand this movie way, way much better. So, besides that, Oppenheimer does cover the story and legacy of American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is notoriously known for creating the first nuclear weapon. Yes, the same weapon that was used in the attack of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that led almost close to the end of World War II. And yes, as you may have heard, I did pay attention in history class. I feel like history class was probably one of my favorite subjects. Then after that being science, then English, and then math. I hated math. It was like a love-hate relationship between both of us. I was good at it, but then, afterwards, once I graduated high school, I never touched it. I hate it. And it was like, I don't even want to know anything about math. And it's funny too, because when you're in science, especially when you're studying physics and chemistry, you do a lot of math. Again, I was good in science because I was also good in math at the time. Now I don't know anything besides what I majored, which is just speaking at this point. But yeah, when I was in history class, every time when we touch the topic of the world wars, I feel like I get invested into it too much, only because I find it crazy fascinating that the world is just at a chaos. Even today we are still living in chaos. But it's just crazy of how that all started and what shaped our daily lives, I would say. I don't want to go into politics, but this movie does get into that. It especially during World War II, with everything that's been happening, like during that time, it's like you don't even know who to trust. And that's the biggest thing that they mention here in this movie. So if you have, if you're big on history, if you're really good at paying attention in history class and all of that, that's why I'm like, if you know all of this stuff, then I really can't spoil much on it. So I can only say so much, but there are like maybe 2 spoiler things that I will probably mention in the spoiler version. Other than that, I will keep it based on history and what we have seen on the trailer itself. Now, the Rotten Tomato score and the audience score for both both of these categories both have a 94%, and it is certified fresh. And let me mention this: Barbie is also certified fresh. We have two great movies with great high scores that premiered on the same day. So it's like they're gonna make like a freaking the entertainment district. The entertainment industry is gonna make sure, or like the tabloids is gonna make sure that they're gonna be at war against each other. But in reality, it's like just support both movies if you can. I mean, yeah, if you're not into history and you want entertainment, maybe Barbie. But we'll get into that in a bit. Besides that, I will say this too. If you're an emotional wreck like me, this movie will give you depression when you see Oppenheimer's perspective. I felt like when I left that movie, I was like, yeah, even more reasons why I need to go watch Barbies. And there is also a viewer discretion advised, because there are sex scenes in here that might make a child be like, what are we watching, mom? So make sure you don't take your kids if you're gonna watch the movie. Now, again, when I mentioned the trailer, if you have seen the trailer, and I think you may have heard about this or noticed this, that there are two types of scenes in this movie, whether if it's the color and the black and white. And so you're wondering like, wait, why is this in black and white? Why is this in color? Let me go ahead and explain that. The scenes in color represent Oppenheimer's subjective experience, and those scenes are written in first person. And they're basically based on opinions and emotions. So that's Oppenheimer's version. The black and white scenes are more objective, in an objective view, and the story is written in third person. What does this mean? This means that these scenes that are in black and white are based on facts and observations. So keep that in mind if you are watching that movie. We do see a lot of great actors portray these historical figures. I feel like, they did an amazing job when they were portraying it. Like, for example, obviously we know Robert Downey Jr. That was one of my biggest one. The only reason why he's now, like, in the trailer, you don't see him as much. I think you only get to see him just in a glimpse. But then, like, if you have seen, like, the Wired interview that they have on the Google searches on YouTube, you see Robert Downey Jr. get tagged on Christopher Nolan. So it's like, wait, he's in this movie, but they're having this interview. Like, oh my God, what's his role? His role is he plays Oppenheimer's real life enemy known as Louis Strauss. So if you have studied everything that Oppenheimer has done, you may have heard of the name. So it's like once you see this version of Robert Downey Jr. playing this guy, you're gonna be like, wow. You will forget he was Iron Man. Literally, you will forget about that. I love it though, and that's the thing I love about Robert Downey Jr. So he did this role pretty good. I love it. And speaking of him, we also have Matt Damon portray as Leslie Groves. He is also mentioned in anything that is involving Oppenheimer. You will also hear Leslie Groves. And then you also see Emily Blunt. Emily Blunt plays Oppenheimer's wife, Kitty. And the reason why I say Emily Blunt is because I know they've been doing some promos on their social media. And if you have not seen, I want to say it was Robert Downey Jr., because I follow him on Instagram. One of Robert Downey's Jr., Robert Downey, RDJ, just say RDJ. RDJ's post has Emily Blunt, and then in the background you see Mr. John Krasinski himself, the husband of Emily Blunt, and you're just wondering, why is he in there? You will never know. But besides her, we also have Gary Oldman. I was not expecting Gary Oldman to come here, but he plays former President Harry Truman, who again was the president at that time during World War II. And I think one of my personal favorites was Tom Conti. He was playing adorable Albert Einstein. I swear, when I saw Albert, it's like, and when I saw the trailer, people freaked out because it's like, oh my God, finally we get to see this guy play him. And when I see him, it's just like, protect Albert Einstein at all costs. Like, I didn't get to study him as much during in high school, and of course I didn't major in science, so I didn't get to really study him. But after this movie, it's like I'm invested into knowing all about Albert Einstein. I believe one of the greatest scientists, along with Stephen Hawking. And again, I feel like these two men I might mention in my next episode, and I really don't want to get into scientific. It's just the topic of what's happening with the strike involves with something that Stephen Hawking himself said. So it's like, if I talk about Stephen Hawking, I talk about Albert Einstein. So interesting topics that might come in next episode. Just warning y'all. Anywho, and speaking of another scientist, we also have actor Matthias Schweighöfer. I want to say that's how you pronounce the last name. And it's German too. And I'm like, come on, Lielers, I thought you got the German already down. But anywho, he plays Werner Heisenberg. Not the same Heisenberg that you might think. Maybe a link, maybe. But no, he is another scientist, and obviously that's the one that inspired Walter White in the Breaking Bad series. So yes, we also have him on this movie. We also had a lot of great actors in here, whether they've been playing a small role or a big role, like Rami Malek, for example. I was like, he's here, He's in there. Florence Pugh is in there. Florence's Pugh, I will say Florence's role I will leave in the spoiler version, because that's something I want to talk about. So stay tuned for that. But, them being a part of this movie along with everybody else. There was other actors. And I forgot. There was this one guy. Forgot his name. But he was in the Stranger Things show from Netflix. And he was in here. So it's like, this movie was so good that they had these actors in there. I'm like, come on. Please, for the love of me, nominate this movie for an Oscar. You'll see why. You'll see why. And so in this movie, again, not only you see Oppenheimer's legacy basically being covered, but you also get to see the whole process of creating the nuclear bomb and detonation. I feel like, I don't know if you've seen the videos on TikTok, unless if people are already spoiling the movie for you. It's intense. I will say that. It's like, I understand why Christopher Nolan really wants you to see the 70 millimeter movie version, because when I saw it in the regular screening that I saw it, I'm like, man, imagine that 70 millimeter. I feel like I would be there physically, and that's what Christopher Nolan wants you to do. It's like, that's why I'm like, okay, fine. If I go to San Antonio and they're still streaming it, I will definitely watch that, because now that I watch this, I'm like, oh, I can only imagine. Excuse me. So like how I mentioned earlier too, if you love history and World War II topics, this movie is for you. You start investing on everything that has to deal with Oppenheimer's legacy and what happened to him during his final days after the bomb made the news. I feel like once I watched this, I was like, okay. And I knew what happened to Oppenheimer afterwards. And it's not just like, because they do cover part of what was his legacy afterwards in this movie. But I feel like even more so afterwards, you start to realize everything else. And that's where the spoiler part will come in, because that everything else can be either both subjective and objective, and you start to make your own conclusions. But only that time and whoever was living during that time will know what was really going on. And even Oppenheimer himself went through so much after that. So it's like you start investing onto it once you leave the movie theater. So it's like if you're not even planning on watching Barbie, you're probably like going on Wikipedia or reading all of these articles. Heck, even at that point, even including myself, I would probably make a trip back to New Mexico. And this is like one of the reasons why I love New Mexico and just talking about it. I didn't know this, but again, this is how much of what they taught us in high school. They didn't teach us about the Manhattan Project. They didn't teach us about, Oppenheimer himself, just the events of what happened in World War II and the bombings and all of that. So when I got to invest into that, I learned about where they did the testing of the first nuclear bomb, and it happened to be in New Mexico. And then I also get to learn of where everybody was stationed. And it's not even that far. It was called Los Alamos, New Mexico, and it's not even that far from Santa Fe. And if I would have known about the things that I know now, I wish that during the time that I was in New Mexico on my birthday, I probably would have said, okay, I'm going to Meow Wolf, but I'm only going to do a quick run. And then after that, probably get a hotel room in Los Alamos and spend the day there and just learning about Oppenheimer, his legacy and everything. And I feel like in this movie itself, we see him in two different perspectives, whether, you know, like, again, is whether the person that made this bomb a good thing or a bad thing. So, you know, I feel like, you know, this movie overall, I want to say I would rate it 100%. Literally, I don't care what the Rotten Tomato score or the audience score say. They were both the same rating after all. But I feel like, you know, this movie, I could not find a bad thing. And I haven't even read the reviews of, you know, people saying why they don't recommend this movie. But I feel like, you know, I guess if it's like, oh, well, I'm just watching this movie of things that I might already know, like maybe a historian already said, yeah, I mean, they probably didn't get some of the stuff right, who knows, whatever it is. Me personally, I loved it. Is this my favorite Christopher Nolan movie? I would say no, only because I have two other great movies that I love. Oppenheimer is definitely number 3 for me. Number 2 being The Dark Knight, and number 1 being Interstellar, because I love what's been going on with space and everything. But I do believe Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's best work yet. I don't know if he can top what he did, but the way how he talks about this movie, or the way how he wrote it and everything, what inspired him to make this movie, it's like the details. This is the same way how I get fascinated with history stuff, you know, stuff that like this you start to invest in, again, like how I mentioned. If you watch this movie, heck, at this point Los Alamos will be the next tourist attraction besides Albuquerque. You know, Albuquerque is like, I mean, they've done so many things on there, and it's not just Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. They have done other movies as well. I think Netflix has their little headquarters there, or not headquarters, but they film some certain stuff in there. But like, once, you know, you start watching Oppenheimer, I feel like, yeah, it's gonna be the next tourist attraction. So if I could, you know, maybe, I don't know, if I ever go to the Balloon Fiesta, I would probably be also taking a trip to Los Alamos and learn about that. I would spend the whole day just investing into that. Definitely recommend this movie for those that are interested in history. Now, again, the spoiler version is going to be after Barbie, so keep staying tuned. If you don't want to hear about Barbie, just go ahead and skip it. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into Barbie now. And let me just say, Oppenheimer left me really depressed. That ending left me like just holding into the walls, kind of breathing, trying to catch my breath. Forget about, you know, 40-minute break. I just want to sit there and cry. But no, thank God for Barbie, because Barbie kind of lifted my spirit just a little bit with a hint of depression. But yes, I had a 40-minute break, so I went ahead, grabbed something to eat, stretch my legs, move around before it was time to come back to the movie theaters and watch this movie Barbie. It was shorter than Oppenheimer. I believe this movie was like less than 3 hours, like 2.5. The movie started at 3, and by the time it was over, if you're watching the end credits, it ends like at 5:14 ish, but I left before. So yeah, and I forgot to mention, there are no end credits on both movies from what I heard, but I also did get to see a video. One of them was a parody, by the way, if you guys saw that, where I think it was Oppenheimer and Albert Einstein were just talking, and then like Hitler revives, and I'm just like, no, don't do that. I mean, it's like, there's no way they're gonna make an Oppenheimer 2. No way. At that point, it's just a joke. If you guys have seen that video, it is an edit. That is not real. Now Barbie, same thing. I don't think they had an end credit from what I read, and I think I saw a clip that says there was an end credit, but I skipped it. So because again, I didn't want to get anything spoiled before I watched this movie. But I will say, this movie is definitely made for people who love girl power or female empowerment, basically. Sorry, let me rephrase that. But with a little bit of reality. And yes, Barbie fans did dress up in pink. I remember I saw one person was just extra with a pink veil. And I'm just like, meh. I could have dressed as a goth Barbie, but only because I'm like, I'm just watching the movie just because I don't want to dress up or anything. I just went in my regular t-shirt and jeans, except my t-shirt had my not my guinea pigs, it just had guinea pigs on there. Again, look at my TikTok video whenever y'all listen to this episode, and then you'll see what I mean. But anywho, the Rotten Tomato score and the audience score was also the same, how I mentioned. They're both the same, except the rating is different. This one got a 90%, but it's still considered certified fresh, which is good. I think this movie had high hopes because everybody's like, this is everybody's dream come true, I guess, since we were kids. I guess, like, almost every girl and even boys play with Barbies. There was a Ken doll too. There was all kinds of it. Now this is something different. Barbie is not your typical classic fairy tale movie that young girls want. It gives every Barbie collector and fan a history of old Barbie dolls and even newer ones. It also implies of how the world really is compared to Barbie Land. It gives children, and not only that, but it also gives children to have an inspiration to be successful once they grow up. So it's like a reality check, I guess. I personally love how they had a plus size Barbie, and me, obviously being a plus size person, I feel like this was a win for us. And I'm just saying, just us plus women, because again, almost every Barbie that you remember seeing growing up, they were all skinny. So it's just breaking that idea that, not that every girl looks prettier skinny and blonde. That is not true. And I love that because, plus size, there was other Barbies too. We also had an African American Barbie that was president. I love that. That was hilarious because, we would love to see that. Two things: diversity, we love it. But yeah, we have her. We had curly hair Barbie for people that had curly hairs. Plus size Barbie actually had, black or brunette hair, however you want to say. And I want to say, and we also had red hair Barbie. We had like all kinds of Barbies. So they were all spread around, and I love that. They even covered topics of mental health with the dolls. So it's like, it's okay. You're okay to be who you are. That's the thing I love. Mental health is always a big thing. And I wish they didn't mention it too, especially when I was going through depression after Oppenheimer. It didn't help me, but overall, it was hilarious. Margot Robbie, for example, I feel like she is a true Barbie. She's perfect for the role. Don't even get me started with Ryan Gosling. I swear, that boy made me laugh. It's your stereotypical Barbies. You got your skinny one and the blonde, and then we have, handsome Gosling with the abs and whatnot, and they were perfect. I swear, I feel like there are women out there that have watched those romantic movies, like The Notebook, for example, that has Ryan Gosling. Forget all about that. It's not about Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. For those that do not know, they hated each other when they were doing the movie. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, though, I'm not saying them as a pair. I'm just saying them working together made this movie great because of all of those scenes. Those scenes, especially for Ryan. We see Ryan Gosling like the serious man, not a jokester. I see him as a serious man. And again, this movie kind of took that out. And I'm just like, huh? Really? I loved it. Highly recommend that. Lots of well-known actors were also in this movie. I was surprised that, overall, out of all these actors, especially the ones that were announced on the trailer or on the posters, I was personally surprised to see the actor Kingsley Ben-Adir Benedict, I want to say that's how I pronounce his last name. He also plays a Ken in this movie, but right now, if you guys do not know, he is currently playing Gravik in the Disney Plus show Secret Invasion, which is still going on right now. Like every new episode gets uploaded on Wednesdays. So we see this guy having this fun, energetic, version of Ken in Barbie, but then we also have the serious, ready to make World War III literally in Secret Invasion. So it's like, wow, this guy is doing both things at the same time, and it's crazy. I love that he was in there. And then there was also like all of the actors that were in here. I feel like the most important one of them all that won me was Will freaking Ferrell. You freaking know Will Ferrell. He is hilarious in everything that he does. This movie, I feel like he just keeps getting more and more hilarious. I don't even know what to do with the man anymore. But God bless his heart for doing the role that he did in this movie. I'm not going to say who he did because, again, I feel like I'm going to spoil this movie. And just know it's that reality part that goes into the movie itself. Or maybe you've seen the trailer of who he plays. But still, I loved how he acted in it. I love it. I think if it wasn't Margaret, if it wasn't Ryan Gosling, I feel like Will Ferrell was like what I wanted, what I needed. If it was just him, I would have watched the whole movie by itself. Another thing I will say too, there are 2 surprise cameos. One you might suspectively know, and I think it was announced, but I'm not gonna say who. But definitely watch it. I heard about the other one too, not the one that people suspect who it is. But I heard about the other one, and I was surprised to learn that this particular person was in this movie. And then when I got to see the role that person played, I was, forget hilarious, I was dying. I was dying as well. I feel like this movie is just hilarious overall, which again, I needed after Oppenheimer. Anywho, if you analyze this movie like I did, if you are planning to watch Barbie, or if you already watched it, I feel like if you pay really, really, really close attention, there is a subliminal message on how women treat men, or vice versa. Maybe more details on the spoiler version, because again, I don't want to spoil it for those that have not seen it. But yeah, there is a really big subliminal message in there. I love it though. I did enjoy the movie. It was very entertaining. However, I did not like the ending. I feel like certain parts of the movie could have been cut and written with something else, which is why I might agree with the 90% rating that they give in Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think this movie was, it was like a little bit realistic, but again, at the end of the day, this movie was for the girls. And when I mean by girls, I meant girls that are probably 10 and under. Because they don't understand. And then when you're older, you're watching it and you're just, you do also get a little part of the mom vibe in there where they're trying to relate, with them to me, who's not a mom, didn't have a good childhood, probably had dolls, but again, we got bored of them, throw them away, all of that. I was just like, okay, well, what else is new? I feel like this movie was just like a cliche, kind of, in a way. I see what they're trying to get to. I see the main story of what they meant in this movie. But besides that, I say I really did enjoy the music, the way how everybody was interacting, the way how this movie is supposed to be joyful with a little bit of emotional, and you start feeling remorse on some of these characters. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that only because I guess I was too tired of all of those cliches and unnecessary stuff. I really do wish that they had a better ending, and I want to say what was the better ending for this movie. But at the end of the day, it was entertaining. I'm sure all the girls in this, all the little girls that went to go watch this movie was like, oh my god, I love Barbie. Good for you. Some of us, however, who are not obsessed with the color pink, digress. We say otherwise. I mean, again, if I had it, like, if I could be a goth Barbie, or if there was a goth Barbie in there, beautiful, okay. But again, it's just the storyline itself. It makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, it's hilarious. Will possibly be a Barbie 2 on here? And how would it feel? That's a little bit tricky, especially again, if you're referring to how it ended. It might not do so well. But we will see. And will I watch it if it does come out? Yeah, probably. Probably just to, because my curiosity always leads me in the other direction. So I'm just like, okay, fine. What's new? Let me see what they're going to bring. And if they bring back Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling and Simu Lee and Michael Cera and let me just say everybody that was in this movie, I will watch it. I will watch it. And other than that, just basically wrapping up the spoiler free version for both sides of the movies and then leading into the small spoiler version. Overall, both movies were great. My personal favorite out of both was Oppenheimer, obviously, because of, it's just history. If you're planning to watch the double feature, I recommend watching Oppenheimer first and then Barbie. Because I swear, Oppie's, and yes, that's what they call him, Oppie's ending left me scarred with the possibility of how our future will end up. And I mean, realistically speaking. Because again, I don't know if it's because just over the fact that this is based on a true story compared to Barbie, it's all fictional in a way. In a way, you'll see why if you watch the movie. I feel like with this, it's like, I don't know. It was more drama, suspense, and Barbie's more like happy, entertaining, and a little bit of dramatic, but like every other movie. Again, it's a kids movie. I will say that. If you have kids, I would say go watch Barbie. If you don't have your kids at the moment, or you just want suspense drama, something that will give you a history lesson, this Oppenheimer will be it. If you take your kids to go watch Oppenheimer, you best believe your kids will be bored, they won't understand what's happening, and worst of all, they might see a sex scene. So do not take your kids to go watch Oppenheimer. Definitely do enjoy it if you do go watch it. It is 3 hours long, I will say that, so don't watch it somewhere where a movie theater has uncomfortable seating like AMC and Studio Movie Grill. Go watch it with a recliner seat, and I'm hearing Cinemark has it. I'm not sponsored. Again, I did not watch this movie in Cinemark, but I know recliner seats are probably comfortable than anything else at the time. And again, Oppenheimer was 3 hours long. It was freaking long. Was it unnecessary? Believe it or not, it was at a perfect length. It was a good length. Barbie, same way. It was at a perfect length. I feel like you could tell the difference because I kind of wrapped up Barbie really, really quick than I did with Oppenheimer. And they both have different stories. I don't know. But anywho, let me go ahead and talk about these little spoiler versions of it. I think I have 2 for Oppenheimer and I have 3 for Barbie. One of them is like really, really short. The other one has the subliminal I want to say the subliminal verses because of Slipknot's album, but no, I meant the subliminal message that I think what it is, along with another character that I kind of favored in this movie. So, if you guys have not seen Oppenheimer or Barbie, are planning on watching it, you're more than welcome to end this episode and I'll talk to you on the next one. But if you are curious to see what was in this movie and what I have to say, go ahead and keep on listening as we go ahead and do the spoiler countdown in 3, 2, 1. And of course I have to start with Oppenheimer because again, that was the first movie that I watched. So Oppenheimer, as I said on the spoiler free version, I will not repeat everything that I said on there, but I will say this. You get to see the perspective in different areas on why the United States desperately needed a weapon ASAP. For example, obviously with the events that happened with Pearl Harbor, they are ready to avenge those victims. And what is the way how they wanted to handle? A nuclear weapon. You also get to see Oppenheimer's mental health decrease after learning how he built a weapon that can literally destroy humanity overall. You also get to see the shady government always having trust issues no matter how much you prove your loyalty to them. I feel like the best way to say this is that politics, scientists, and even religion are always going on, like they're gonna be at each other's necks. I feel like there's never gonna be a coexistence on there, and this is why I steer clear on these topics. And I don't want to talk much of the movie itself because it does get really political in there. I understand like the outside perspective of it, of why they just don't trust each other, but it just sucks, especially when it affects somebody's career. And like, I guess, like with everybody, with all the scientists that has won awards and all of that, Oppenheimer was the least one, only because he technically created a weapon a weapon instead of a discovery. So it's like, it's really sad. And again, if you watch the scenes in his first person scenario, you're starting to wonder what led Oppenheimer do the Manhattan Project. Was it out of greed? Was it out of pride? Was it for, I don't know, for attention? I mean, whatever it is, he did this only for him to realize he made a mistake. It's crazy, and it makes so much sense afterwards, when he has all that guilt in him. But at the same time, again, like, if you've seen this movie, you start to hate the government for how they treat him. But it's mostly like they don't just feel any remorse afterwards. And again, during that time, they didn't care about mental health. I mean, I'm about to talk about mental health in a bit, but they didn't care. They didn't care what it was. It's like, you do your work or you don't. Simple as that. Don't complain. Just do it. And now that we're talking about mental health, there was another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is Florence's Pugh, however they want to say her last name. Her role in this movie, she portrays Jean Tatlock. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And that story, again, I wanted to leave it in the spoiler version because sweet Jesus. For those that are horn dogs, for everybody else, if you're attracted to Florence, you're probably gonna want this. You're gonna want to watch this movie, because guess what? She's topless in this movie multiple times. Yeah, saw a lot of boobs on her. Now I know what she looks like. So that's one story. But how I mentioned about mental health, I actually did a little bit of research on who Jean Tatlock was. And in this movie they do show how she winds up afterwards, because she was in a, I guess, romantic relationship with Oppenheimer before and after he got married with his wife, at that time, Kitty Oppenheimer. And so you get to learn about her, and you start to realize that she's just, she's a type of woman that's just not satisfied with what she has. Meaning, like, whether if it's romance, whether if it's her life's work, whatever it is, she's a psychiatrist. And I find it very, very bizarre on how she ends up, killing herself. Like, she committed suicide. And, like, obviously one starts speculating, after you watch this movie, and you start to wonder. But it's like crazy, again, how mental health during that time wasn't really a severe case or something that people pay attention to nowadays. And so when I learned about how Jean ends up, I find that very crazy. Only just, again, and they mentioned this in Wikipedia. I know, it's like, really, Wikipedia? They mentioned that, maybe she was struggling with her sexuality. And I'm just like, maybe that could have been the case too. Because again, during that time, LGBTQIA plus wasn't even a thing at that time too. People will look or like frown upon stuff like that. So, if she only had known that, if she was living during this time, if only she had known of all these resources that we have, she could have still been alive. But I was not expecting for her to kill herself like that. It was crazy when I found that out. But we also learned that, she was the reason why it like, I guess her, not connection, but she said something to Oppenheimer that inspired basically the naming of the bomb, which was Trinity at the time. and it was from a quote that Gene told Oppenheimer. Now that's a whole different thing, and again, this is why I mean this movie would just get you invested in so many things. And again, after this episode, I'm gonna invest on Albert Einstein himself and see what he has done. But other than that, those are the only two things I wanted to talk about Oppenheimer and spoiler version wise. Everything else, I mean, it's on the history books. It's out there online. You're more than welcome to research. And if you are interested even more, definitely go watch this movie because it's really good. It's not even about an atomic bomb. It's just crazy. And I still can't believe he didn't do CGI on that. That's crazy. But anywho, let me go ahead and talk about the spoiler version of Barbie, which again, I only have like 3 little short ones. Who was the surprise cameos? Tell us, Lielers. Tell us. I will. It was John Cena and Dua Lipa. And again, I think most of us knew Dua Lipa was going to be in this movie because she wrote the song, or like a theme song for Barbie. I was not expecting John Cena, and I heard rumors that John Cena was going to be in this movie. I just didn't know what he was going to be. And all it was him playing a mermaid Ken. I was dying. I swear. We should have casted John Cena for the Little Mermaid real life movie, because he slayed that. Even the wig, the bra, everything. I love that man. I honestly, like, he outside of his whole thing, whether if it's acting, wrestling, whatever it is, he looks like he is a serious person. If you have not seen Total Bellas, if you guys are into John Cena, like, you know, like how I am, like, invested like in his life, whatever. He's very serious, very weird, and I don't mean weird like he's weird, but I'm just like serious in an odd way that I'm not used to. You know, having tea time a certain time. I don't know if he still does that. But like when he's in actor mode, he is very hilarious, and I love that about him, and especially when he brings it into these movies. So yeah, I was surprised to see him in this movie. Another thing that I wanted to mention was Gloria's daughter, Sasha. I freaking loved her. And especially like when she talks about how the idea of Mattel had when they, like, their idea of when they created the Barbies. Like, nothing is perfect and we have to embrace it. And that's what basically she was trying to say. You know, especially when she was lashing out at stereotypical Barbie. I was like, yes, you know, like, finally somebody speaking my language. You know, it's okay to have so many imperfections. Nothing is perfect here, you know. I have a lot. Shoot, you know, do I wish I was different? Yeah, but is it because of how society sees it? No, it's just, you know, overall just stuff. And then same thing with Gloria herself, whenever she talks about how a mom, or even a woman, just at that time, just a woman overall, like what they have to deal with. And it was, she said a lot, and I'm just like, part of it I could relate, but then the other part I couldn't, because she was talking about, again, being a mom, being there for your child, but also not trying to yell at them, but also be there for them, you know. And it gets really, really complicated. But for some reason, she was speaking our language as a woman, and we understood it. If you're a guy watching Barbie, you're gonna be like, what? You know, at that point, you're relating at Ken. And then when you see Ken, the way how he saw corporate America, it's like, oh yeah, now we see it, you know, like they understand it, but we don't, you know. But anywho, the other part I did wanted to talk about was that subliminal message that I mentioned in the spoiler-free version. What was it? I don't know, but me, honestly, it's like it was during the part when the Barbies were trying to make sure that Ken Land doesn't exist and keep it as Barbie Land. And the way how they did this is they manipulated all the Kens. Interesting. Because that is the same way how women manipulate men now. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, men manipulate women too. And that's the thing. You see that big message, manipulation at its finest in these movies. And I'm just like, wow. So is this how we shape society, based on manipulation? And now that I think about it, once I feel like at that point, like if it was a spoiler version of what the message is through both movies, in Oppenheimer and in Barbie, is manipulation. Manipulation is not good. And I feel like that's why nothing is perfect, because we manipulated society. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Very, very crazy. now I'm starting to think, I'm starting to go into a rabbit hole that I don't want to even go to. I see it, but I don't want to jump into it. So with that being said, I will go ahead and wrap up this episode because oh my god, I could probably talk about manipulation for a while, but I don't need to. Again, mental health people. But yeah, overall, again, I really still think Oppenheimer was a really good watch. And then Barbie, again, it's just to cure your depression from Oppenheimer, or you're just trying to have fun, be entertained, and all of that. Me, who is a tomboy, does not like girly things, but I went to go watch Barbie just because I saw Simu Lee and Michael Cera, so that was probably like, okay, I gotta watch it. But yeah, I don't know if I'm able to do a double feature at the same time, because sweet Jesus, that took a while. It was like 6 hours of my day. But I will say this again, if you are gonna be watching these movies, definitely watch it in the same order that I did. Watch Oppenheimer first and then watch Barbie to cure your depression. But yeah, no, I love these movies. Again, I'm really glad that I went to go watch both of them because I'm supporting to both creators. I feel like if the pandemic didn't happen once again, we would have had, like, I think it was The Matrix and John Wick that was gonna be coming out last year. Yeah, because it came out last year. They were supposed to come in at the same time. Keanu Reeves was going to top the box office either way, and I was willing to support him no matter what. Whether watching one movie or the other, I think it was going to be John Wick first. John Wick was going to be the first movie that I watched, and then Matrix. But other than that, I don't think I would do another double feature unless if I have comfortable seating, for sure. But again, I will go ahead and wrap up this episode. As always, guys, make sure to follow my social media accounts at It's Lielers on Instagram, Twitter, and on Threads if you have Threads. And at Lielers on TikTok, which again, let me remind you, by the time if you're done listening to this episode, make sure to check out that TikTok video that I mentioned where you see my perspective of how I spent that day of watching, or today, obviously, how I spent today watching both movies and still take my break to eat and then come back and then go ahead and go on with this episode, and then after that, again, or vice versa, if you already watched the TikTok video, thank you so much. Do go watch the other video of Cosmo finally picking up who she wants for her to be her man. And I'm really, really excited about how she did that one. So now I'm starting to think, okay, maybe she needs to be watching this person more. I would say that. I'm not going to say who. Maybe on the next episode. You never know. But yes, speaking of the next episode, stay tuned for that one. I will go ahead and say what it's going to be about. I know for sure it's going to be about the strike that is happening with the SAG-AFTRA Awards. I finally got the acronyms right. So it's the strike about that. I'm also talking about AI because that's leading up to one of the reasons why the strike also happened. And then a few other things like, maybe Ghost's Discord, if y'all knew that was a thing. And then also maybe Deadpool 3. Ooh. Yes, I know Deadpool 3 images came out. But again, after the strike, we're going to get delayed by a lot of things. So be prepared about that. But anywho, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much again for listening to this episode. And I will talk to you on the next one.